I work nights at a big box store, the kind that starts putting out Halloween stock in August and lets it metastasize until the whole seasonal aisle smells like latex and cinnamon brooms. If you've never closed a store alone in October, here's the thing nobody tells you. The masks don't look like decorations at 1:30 a.m. They look like faces waiting to breathe. It was the week before Halloween, and we'd just finished the third reset of the seasonal aisle. Corporate wanted the premium masks hung at eye level, clowns with cracked smiles, white plastic visors, ancient plague beaks, 30 faces in a row. We used plastic zip ties to fix them so they wouldn't swing. I was counting peg hooks when I noticed one of the masks was wrong. Not from the front, from the back. I was behind the display, walking that narrow employee corridor between the upright bays, and through the slats I could see the backs of the masks. Tags, elastic bands, a grid of metal. All identical, except one had no tag. Just a black elastic band and a smooth backing like skin. I told myself it was a return. We get weird returns. I kept working. The store emptied. The last customer left at 11:58, a dad with twin witches who argued whether they needed glow sticks. I locked the doors, killed the music, did the nightly sweep. On my second pass, I saw something else. One peg in premium masks had only 2 left. I checked the inventory gun. System said 3. I chalked it up to shrink. October bleeds money. At 1:10 a.m., I did cash pull, then trash. Bags go out through a side door into a fenced bay with 2 dumpsters. It's the worst part of the shift. Black corners, humming sodium lights. That feeling like something is already standing still out there, waiting for you to open the door. I pushed the bar, stepped into cold air, and froze. There, against the chain link, was a mask. Not hanging, worn. A white, featureless face turned toward me. No movement, no sound. Just the white oval where a person's head should be. I did the stupid thing. We're closed. Like hours had anything to do with it. The figure didn't answer. It didn't rush me. It didn't even tilt its head. I backed inside, let the door swing, and stood there with my hand on the crash bar and my heart in my throat. When I looked again through the little wired window, the figure was gone. I told myself it was a prank. Teenagers, TikTok, fine. At 1:40 a.m., I started recovery and seasonal to kill time until alarm set. I was restacking candy when I heard it, breathing. Not the HVAC, not my own, heavy, slow behind the bay. I stepped into the employee corridor and saw nothing. Just the ribbed backs of the shelves and the hooks poking through. I leaned forward. Through the slats, 30 masks stared back at me, except one had eyes behind it. Not shining, not glowing. Just present. I jerked back and hit my elbow. The bay clanged. The eyes behind the mask didn't flinch. "Sir," I said, because my brain needed a script. "You can't be back there." Silence. Then, the most ordinary thing in the world. The soft squeak of a shoe pivoting on waxed floor. I ran the long way around the aisle and came into seasonal from the front. Every mask hung perfectly still. I stood there for a long time, listening. Nothing. My phone said 1:53, 10 minutes till alarm. I told myself I'd imagined it. I killed the aisle lights, set the front alarms, and left. 2 nights later, the loss prevention guy came by. Tall, bored, smelled like coffee and cold rain. I told him about the missing mask count and the side bay incident. He shrugged and said shoplifters had been targeting full-face latex because they flip on Marketplace. "Check the cameras?" I asked. He sighed. "We only store 7 days. "What night?" I told him. He pulled up the feed on his tablet. We skimmed through timestamps. At 1:12 a.m., the side bay camera showed me pushing the door open, stepping out, dropping 2 bags into the dumpster, and then freezing. But the corner where I'd seen the white face? Dark, grainy. The camera's IR washed out. It looked like a wall of gray. "Nothing," he said. "You good?" I wasn't. The next night, the mask without a tag had migrated 1 peg to the left. I know because I'd started counting them like rosary beads. Left to right. The tagless one had been between the cracked clown and the hockey visor. Now it sat between the visor and the plague beak. I went around to the back of the bay again because I hated myself. Through the slats, tags, 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 and one smooth back like skin, and then from the front the gentlest tap on plastic, like a finger testing a mask to see how it hangs. I came around fast. Nothing. Just faces. Just the late shift making you hear things. At 2:07 a.m., a guest rang the bell at the locked front door. I don't open after midnight, but company policy says acknowledge and wave them away so they don't call corporate. I walked up, performed the apologetic shrug, the palms out, we're closed mime. The woman on the other side of the glass didn't move. She wore a long coat and a white mask. Featureless. She just stood there, hands down at her sides, inches from the door, looking in. Ma'am, we're closed. She didn't bang. She didn't plead. She didn't even fog the glass. She turned her head slightly, towards Seasonal, like she knew what I'd been looking at. Then she walked away into the parking lot, dark. I locked the inner vestibule and waited. My breathing fogged. My reflection looked like a stranger. 2 minutes later, the bell rang again. I stepped out from behind the service desk and saw someone else at the door. Not a woman this time, taller, white mask. Same stillness, same posture. I didn't go closer. I killed the lobby lights. The figure turned and walked along the glass toward Seasonal again, where the inside aisle ran parallel to the windows. I called mall security. They said they'd send a patrol. I watched the camera feed above the desk. In the grainy black and white, the vestibule showed no one. By the time I made it back to Seasonal, 3 masks had new gaps around them. The pegs didn't hang right, like the masks had been tugged and rehung with the zip tie pushed to the wrong notch. I radioed the one other associate on shift, Ben, to meet me at Seasonal. He took his time. When he arrived, I said, "You see anyone come through here?" He shook his head. "Man, I've been in grocery pulling backstock." "Why?" I didn't want to sound crazy. "Shrink," I said. "Masks." Ben looked up at the wall of faces and laughed too loudly. "Dude, we should take a selfie." October wall of nightmares. He pulled his phone, stepped back, raised it, then stopped. He frowned and lowered it. "That's weird." "What?" "My camera won't focus." He tried again. The camera app conked out. He shook the phone. It went black, then rebooted. "Whatever," he said, and left. I stood alone with the masks. 30 faces, all cool and dull under fluorescent light. I reached up and touched the tagless one. The latex was warm. I didn't finish the reset. I set the alarm at 2:30 and left 10 minutes early without telling anyone. The parking lot felt too open. I walked fast. My car remote wouldn't unlock on the first try or the second. On the third, it chirped, and as I reached for the handle, I saw it, a white face in my back seat. I swore out loud, then realized it was reflection, one of the masks in the store caught in the glass. I laughed at myself, that awful shaky laugh that tastes like metal. I got in, locked the doors, and started the engine. The radio came on, AM static, and buried under the noise was the faintest recorded breathing. I punched the volume down, switched to FM, then off. When I pulled out, I saw them, 3 people, walking in a line along the edge of the lot. Not toward the bus stop, not toward cars, just parallel to the store. Long coats, white masks. I didn't go home. I drove to a petrol station 2 miles away and parked under bright lights. I watched the forecourt, watched the night, watched the attendant clean the coffee lids like it was the most important job in the world. At 3:22, I drove home with my shoulders up around my ears. I took 2 days off after that. Manager wasn't happy. I didn't care. When I came back, the Seasonal bay was already reset for Christmas. Overnight, they'd stripped the masks, boxed them, and sent them to backstock. Tinsel replaced faces. Candy canes replaced beaks. I exhaled for the first time in a week, until I clocked out at 2:05 and cut through receiving to the back door. The metal roll-up was down. The night air seeped through. On the floor by the exit, where returns sit before the morning crew sorts them, 3 boxes waited. All marked Seasonal masks. 1 box was open. Inside, a white featureless mask lay on top. No tag, no barcode, just elastic. Somewhere in the store I heard the softest sound, zip ties tightening, one after the other. Snick, snick, snick. I didn't go looking. I set the alarm and left. The next night, I called in sick and checked my door camera from the sofa at 2:17, 2:41, 2:58, nothing. At 3:03, a notification lit my screen. Motion detected. Front door. The camera showed a person standing perfectly still at the foot of my steps. Long coat hanging, white mask reflecting the streetlight. The figure didn't move, didn't knock, didn't look around. It lifted an arm, slowly, and held up a plastic zip tie between 2 fingers, like a promise. Then it set something gently on my mat and walked away. I watched the feed for 5 straight minutes. No cars, no footsteps. Just October air. I didn't open the door until sunrise. On my mat was a store tag punched with a hole for hanging. It said premium mask, $24.99. Someone had blacked out the UPC with marker. The back of the tag said, in tidy block letters, "We hang where you put us." I put the tag in the bin, changed the locks, and I still transferred to day shifts in November. But sometimes, like now telling you this, I feel air move through a room with no open window, like something standing still just turned its head. I didn't volunteer for the corn maze because I love Halloween. I did it because my sister runs the farm festival, and she was short 3 people after the rugby club decided the hayride was boring. My job was simple. Stand at checkpoint 3. Punch tickets, tell people left is shorter, right is more fun, and radio if anyone got hurt or panicked. The first hour was fine. The second hour, a little weird. By hour 5, I realized someone in the maze never meant to leave. The maze map looks like a children's doodle. In person, it's a walled city, 8-foot stalks, muddy paths, the constant rustle like someone stepping just out of sight. We place staff at 5 checkpoints and 2 rovers inside. There are emergency cut-throughs for when people freeze and cry. It happens more than you'd think. At sunset, the crowd shifted. Fewer families, more couples, more groups of teens tying hoodies around their waists and filming each other pretend to be scared. I'd stamp their cards, check my watch, listen to the radio chatter. We log head count in and out by wristband color. It's not perfect, but it keeps us from losing anyone. At 7:15, a man came through alone. Mid-30s, dark jacket, no costume. He didn't meet my eyes. I stamped his card and said, "Right path scenic." He didn't answer. He stepped into the next corridor and disappeared around a bend. I made a note on my clipboard. Solo, black jacket, no chatter. At 7:34, the rover radioed. "Kid lost a trainer at 5. Found it. Returning." My sister's voice cut in cheerful and practiced. "Copy. Everyone hydrate." At 7:52, a couple came through laughing a little too loud. That brash relief of finding a checkpoint. They asked if anyone had come by alone. Kinda creepy. I said plenty of people did. They traded a look and told me they'd passed a man standing perfectly still at a 3-way junction, facing into the corn, like he was listening. "Did he say anything?" I asked. They shook their heads. "Didn't even turn around," the guy said. "We thought he was an actor. We don't hire actors." I radioed it in. "Possible lingerer near Junction C. No interaction reported." "Copy," my sister said. By 8:05, the crowd thinned. The air shifted cold. The maze sounds change at night. The wind makes the corn whisper, and sometimes you hear your own heartbeat in the rustle. My torch picked out dust motes and the occasional moth battering my headlamp. At 8:17, I heard something I'll never unhear. Breathing. Not mine. Slow, measured from the other side of the wall. I stepped toward the sound. The corn leaned and whispered back. The breathing stopped. "Hello?" I said, because pretending it's polite makes it safe. Nothing. Footsteps approached my checkpoint. 3 teens, arms locked. They rushed past me without stamping. "Hey," I called. Sorry, there's a guy back there," one said. "He's just standing." We asked if he needed help, and he said, "No, I'm waiting." "For what?" I asked. They didn't know. They didn't look back. I radioed again. "Rover 2, can you sweep Junction C? Reports of a single adult male loitering, non-responsive. On it." Rover 2 said, "Give me 3 minutes. 3 minutes in a corn maze is a lifetime." At 8:22, the PA announced the last entry gate had closed. No new guests. We had 47 inside by the last clicker count. At 8:30, Rover 2 checked in. Junction C clear. No one there. I asked about the side corridors. He said he'd checked. Maybe he moved on. Maybe. At 8:39, a woman arrived at my checkpoint shaking. Late 20s, cat ears, mascara smudged. "Do you have a staff path?" she asked. "I want to be out." "Sure," I said. I stamped her card with the emergency exit stamp and pointed her to a cut-through. "Everything okay?" She swallowed. "There's a man who keeps letting me catch up to him and then stepping just out of sight. He's not with anyone." She hesitated. "He knows when I stop because he stops too." I offered to walk her to the exit. She said no. I watched until she reached the flagged rope and slipped out onto the tractor lane toward the lights. When I turned back to my checkpoint, The man in the dark jacket was standing 3 meters away. I hadn't heard him approach. He held out his card. I reached for the stamp and saw his wristband was the wrong color. Orange. Orange is staff. Guests are green. Are you working tonight? I asked. He didn't answer. He looked at my hands like he was trying to memorize them. His breathing was slow, too slow. He held his card perfectly flat, like a schoolboy performing a trick. I stamped it. The stamp's a pumpkin with a number. It left a wet black circle on paper. Left is shorter, I said. He turned right and vanished into dark. My radio crackled. All checkpoints count cards to close loop. We do this to match guest flow. I thumbed my pile and felt something stick. One card was damp where the stamp had smudged. On the back in shaky ballpoint, I live here. The letters had bled from sweat. I turned the card over. No name. No printed barcode. The cheap printer had eaten half of it. Rover 2, I said. Can you return to 3? I need eyes. No answer. Control, do you copy from Rover 2? My sister asked. Static. In my torch beam, dust hung like snow. The corn leaned and whispered as if something large had just brushed by. At 8:48, a kid ran up, cheeks red, grinning. Got through it! He held out his card for the final stamp. His mom wasn't with him. I felt wrong stamping him out. Where's your mom? I asked. He shrugged. She told me meet at the lights. We don't let kids exit alone. I kept him with me and radioed his description. A rover found the mom at checkpoint 2, crying. When they reunited and left, the path felt empty in a loud way. The kind of empty you notice. At 8:58, the PA announced the maze was now closed. Staff sweeping for stragglers. We do a final pass, 2 rovers starting at opposite ends, and each checkpoint walks their nearest loop. We bring everyone out into the tractor lane, match counts. Go home. Checkpoint 3 sweeping, I said. I clipped the flashlight under my chin. Took the left corridor, shorter, then the right, fun, memorizing the mud patterns so I wouldn't lose myself. The wind dropped. The air felt like hanging breath. I turned a corner and found a chair. We do not put chairs in the maze. It wasn't a lawn chair or a stool. It was a dining chair, dark wood, slightly too tall as if made for someone who wanted to look down. It sat at a 3-way junction facing into the corn wall. In the damp earth around its legs were footprints in a perfect circle, like someone had paced and paced and paced, turning the mud into polished rings. On the seat was a stack of punched cards. Guest cards, old ones, edges softened with sweat, stamp marks ghosted. The top card said welcome home in the same shaky hand. Control, I said, throat dry. I need a head count confirmation for orange bands. Silence. Then, say again. Orange bands, I repeated. Staff bands. How many inside? None, my sister said. All staff are accounted for at gate. From the chair and turned toward the cut-through that leads to the tractor lane. 2 steps in, I heard breathing behind the corn wall. Slow, deliberate, close. I stood still for a long time, counting my own inhales so I wouldn't hear his. When I finally moved, I didn't run. I would not be the person who runs in a maze. I walked the cut-through, calmer than I felt, and stepped into the tractor lane under fluorescent safety lights. 3 volunteers were there, plus my sister, plus 2 cops she'd called because a mother said a man had followed her to the exit and then stepped back into the corn. We counted cards. We matched bands. We were short by 1 green wristband, guest missing. Teen girl, gray hoodie, Rover 1 said. She cut toward 3 at 8:40. We swept again with police. They took the right and left. I was sent up the middle with a cop who smelled like mint gum. We found the chair. Empty now. The stack of cards was gone. The mud was scuffed. At Junction C, my torch picked out something white. At first I thought it was a dropped map. It was a Polaroid, the type you print from those little novelty printers. In it, my checkpoint sign stood in crisp flash, checkpoint 3, and in the foreground, slightly out of focus, was my face, bent over someone's card. My hands shook. The cop took the photo with gloved fingers and bagged it. We get weirdos, he said, not unkindly. They found the girl 5 minutes later near the entrance crying. She said she'd gotten turned around and then someone kept reading my steps, which made no sense until she explained. Every time she stopped, a voice nearby counted her footfalls out loud. 1, 2, 3. When she put her hands over her ears, the voice got closer. We closed the maze early that night. No refunds. The cops did a perimeter, then left with a shrug and paper forms. My sister and I did a last pass at midnight. Under my checkpoint sign, pinned with a split stalk of corn, we found a single guest card. Fresh stamp. On the back, a tidy vertical line of letters in black ballpoint. I never leave before Halloween. We opened the maze again the next day because farms make money in October or they don't make it at all. The chair didn't come back. The breathing didn't either. But the night after Halloween, when we took the maze down, I volunteered to pull the last run of stakes. The field looked naked with the corn mowed flat into brown rows. There was nothing to hide behind. Nothing to overhear. No rustle, no breath. At the place where my checkpoint had stood, there was a square of bare earth where the mud hadn't taken. In the center was a faint ring, like a chair had sat there a long time. I picked up one more piece of litter before we left. It was a punch card. No stamp, no barcode. On the back, in neat handwriting I'd started to recognize, it said, "See you next year. I don't volunteer anymore." The rule on our street is simple. If the porch light is on, you're giving out candy. If it's off, you're done for the night. I'd never thought about who decided that rule or how easy it would be to rewrite it. Halloween fell on a Saturday, which meant the rush started early. I'd set out a bowl of mini bars next to my door, put fake cobwebs in the porch corner, and taped a paper skeleton to the glass. My sister was out with her kid on the other side of town, so it was just me and a playlist of old horror scores and a candle that smelled like smoke and apples. From 6 to 8. It was perfect, the kind of small-town Halloween you remember. Kids in plastic armor and glitter capes. Parents in anoraks with travel mugs. Teenagers too cool to wear costumes, but not too cool to take 2 candies when you wink. I recognized most of the faces. That's the other rule on our street. We know each other. At 8:17, I flicked the porch light off. Candy gone. I blew out the candle, pulled the skeleton off the glass so it wouldn't rattle in the wind, and closed the door. At 8:22, the doorbell rang. I looked at the dark porch and felt that familiar twinge of guilt. Maybe a late toddler, running behind. I peeked through the peephole. A mask stared back. Not a monster, a face. Skin-colored, too smooth, like those theatrical ones with exaggerated cheekbones. The person wearing it was tall and wrapped in a gray hoodie. No costume beyond that. No parent behind them. No group. I didn't open the door. I called through it. Sorry. Done for the night. They didn't move. They rang the bell again. Then again. Finger firm, polite, insistent. I turned the deadbolt just to hear it click. "We're closed," I said, because apparently I can't stop talking like a shop assistant after midnight. The person finally stepped back. I watched their shadow melt off the glass, listened for footsteps, heard none. At 8:30, my phone buzzed. Group chat, neighbor watch, Halloween. Claire, 2 houses down, posted a photo of a masked person at her door. Same smooth face, same hoodie. Her caption, "Anyone know this kid? They won't leave." 2 other neighbors chimed in. Same bell, same mask. Someone wrote, "Probably a prank." Someone else, "Call non-emergency line." I typed they were here too and almost sent it. I didn't. I don't like being the one who makes it a thing. I turned on a film, low volume, and tried to enjoy the last of the night. I heard kids farther down the block. The wind picked up. The skeleton on my table flapped when the heater kicked in. I stood to tape it down when the power flickered, not off, not on, a hiccup. The house made that click it makes before the fridge decides whether to try again, and then my porch light turned on. I didn't turn it on. I hadn't touched the switch. I keep it on a little smart plug for Christmas lights because I'm lazy and like schedules, but I'd unplugged it when I blew out the candle. Still, the bulb glowed steady over the mat. The doorbell rang. I stared at it. Not the bell, the switch plate. The little white button with a hairline crack where it meets the plastic trim. A smudge of dark near the bottom where fingers hit. The bell rang again. I checked the peephole. Nobody there. I opened the door an inch with the chain on. Cold air moved in. My bowl was back on the chair, empty. I'd taken it in, I was sure of it. The paper skeleton I'd peeled off the glass was taped back up, slightly crooked. The tape was new. My tape had been clear glossy. This was matte. I closed the door and set the deadbolt. Group chat pinged. Anyone else's porch light keep turning on? 3 messages. One saying yes. One saying their side gate was open. One photo of a porch where the bowl sat full again, refilled with someone else's candy. Off-brands, mixed shapes, no wrappers matching. At 8:47, my motion camera by the drive pinged. I tapped the notification and saw just stillness, street, tree, my bin, porch light burning. Then, as the clip ran, a smear of gray moved just at the edge of frame, as if someone had stepped closer to the house than the camera's angle could catch. I opened my window a crack and listened. Leaves. A distant laugh. Then a sound I can feel in my shoulders even now. Zip. The soft plastic whisper of duct tape being pulled. I shut the window. I called my sister, went to voicemail. I typed in the group chat, call 101, don't open your doors. I hit send. The message hung with the little clock icon, then posted. At 8:53, my back motion sensor pinged. I don't have a back camera, only a cheap light that triggers when a fox wanders through. The light flooded the alley between the houses for a second, then died. I went to the kitchen and stood in the dark, one hand on the counter. I could see the square of porch light through the front hall. I could see my reflection in the microwave glass. I could see my breath when I exhaled too hard. The doorbell rang, twice, not frantic, measured, practiced. I checked the peephole. The mask was back, closer this time. The person leaned in. The peephole warped the features, made them huge and smooth. On the other side of the laminate, I heard a whisper that wasn't a whisper so much as breath with intent. Open, it said, not a plea. An instruction. I didn't. I backed away and picked up my phone to dial. Before my thumb hit the screen, the phone lit with a new notification. Your delivery is here. I hadn't ordered anything. A second later, my side door, the one by the bins, the one I never use, made a sound. Not a knock, not a rattle. More like someone testing the weather strip with a fingernail. My stomach dropped. Everyone focuses on the front door on Halloween. But houses are dumb little systems. The front says no. The side just waits. I crept to the side hallway. The frosted glass in that door blurred the outside into a gray glow. A shape moved beyond it, tall, then shorter, then taller again, like someone stepping closer and crouching to look up under the blind. I called 999. My voice was steadier than my hands. I told them what I could, unknown person, mask, repeated ringing, possible tampering with lights. The operator asked if I felt in immediate danger. Yes, I said, meaning it for the first time. She told me to stay on the line, move somewhere secure, and not to engage. I went to the top of the stairs. It felt stupid. What is height to a door? But it gave me sight lines. I heard footsteps on gravel. Then the scraping sound of tape again. A minute later, my letterbox creaked open and closed once, twice. The operator asked if I could lock it. I couldn't, not from my side. The doorbell rang. The porch light flared brighter. My phone vibrated. Camera notification. Face detected. I opened the app. The image froze for a second, then resolved. The frame didn't show a person at all. It showed a phone held inches from my camera, White Notes app open. On the screen, 3 words in bold, porch light rule. The phone lowered. The mask-filled frame. The person tilted their head exactly like someone deciding where a nail should go. I said into the phone, "They're at my camera." "They're..." And then quietly, like a teacher reminding a child of procedure, the operator said, "Officers are nearby. Stay upstairs." From the back of the house, something clicked. Not the side door, the breaker. The house fell silent in that way you only hear when the fridge and the fan and the hum all die. All the lights went out, except the porch light. It burned steady. The operator kept talking, her voice a metronome. I could barely hear her over my own blood. I took one step down, then another, until I could see the rectangle of the front door. The skeleton on the glass was a black smear against light. The letterbox opened. A hand slipped through. Not a glove. Bare skin, pale, with a strip of duct tape around 2 fingers. Adhesive facing out like a crude tool. The hand pressed the taped fingers to the inside of my deadbolt, hunting for purchase. I didn't think. I moved. I slammed my palm flat against the metal letterbox, pinning the hand. The person yanked back. The tape tore, leaving a dull gray flag stuck to my bolt. Then the hand withdrew in a smooth motion that felt practiced. I shoved the inside chain in place even though it wouldn't stop a determined kick. I backed away. Sirens yelped once. Close, that polite bark they do before the actual wail. The letterbox fell closed. Silent. I stood there with my breath in my throat. the phone hot against my ear until blue lights rolled across the ceiling. "Knox," loud official. "Police." When I opened the door, 2 officers stood on my step. Beyond them, the street looked normal. Leaves, a crisp night. No masks, no hoodies, no one at all. They walked the perimeter, checked the side door, the back. One officer pointed to the tape on my deadbolt and raised an eyebrow. He called it improvised grip. He said they see it sometimes, people using sticky fingers to try to turn locks through the letterbox. He asked if I'd had any packages lately. I said no. He nodded like that meant something. He tested my porch light switch. It was off. He unscrewed the bulb with a gloved hand and handed it to me. "Smart bulbs," he said like a diagnosis. "People can spoof them if they sniff your Wi-Fi. Or it could be a local glitch." They took a statement. They left. I taped the letterbox shut that night like I was bandaging a wound. The next morning, I bought a cage for it and a bolt that locks from the inside. I set my porch light to manual. I put my camera higher and set a privacy mask so it only triggers on my steps and not the pavement. Neighbors texted apologies for the chat panic. Someone suggested a bonfire next year with mulled cider to bring back the safe Halloween feel. I typed "great idea" and never hit send. For a week, nothing. Then last night, my side camera, newly installed, caught movement at 2:11 a.m. A person in gray paused by my bins, looked straight up at the lens, then stepped back out of frame. The clip had no audio. My porch lights stayed off. At 6:30 this morning, I found a bowl on my front step. Not mine, not any brand I know. Cheap, unlabeled plastic. Inside were 5 miniature chocolate bars I've never seen before. Their wrappers printed in a language I can't read. Taped to the bottom of the bowl was a note. "Rules keep you safe. Keep your light on when we come. Halloween is once a year. But rules spread. They're just agreements we perform until they're real. My porch light is off tonight. My doors are bolted. My letterbox is caged. I don't know if that's safe, or if I've just told someone I'm home and I'm willing to play.